And now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we turn to Yang Berhormat Gobind Singh, Minister of Digital, to deliver the CyberDSA 2025 keynote and official opening address.
Ladies and gentlemen, about 2 months ago, there was an event that we hosted, held at the KL Convention Center, in which we invited speakers from across the globe to talk about their experiences in the cyber realm. There was this lady who spoke about an experience of hers, which I think made an important point. She was a cybersecurity expert based in Melbourne, Australia. And she told us that she was working with a company that had developed itself over many years. And one afternoon, this company was the target of a cyber attack, resulting in which it lost half of its business, or its customers, in just one afternoon. What was interesting about that conversation was that she reflected on how, after the attack, there was this whole thinking about how we sometimes ignore the most simple things, particularly when it comes to security, in how we operate our daily lives and our businesses today. Imagine you spend years building a business, everything is going really well. Subsequently, as a result of a threat and attack, you lose half of your customers in one afternoon, and you have to spend the next 6 months just building that trust again before the same customers consider you as being an organization which they would want to do work with again. So di sini kita dapat melihat sebenarnya apa yang kita sebut sebagai perlunya untuk kita mengubah corak pemikiran kita, khususnya berkaitan dengan aspek keselamatan cyber, keyakinan yang perlu kita bina sekiranya kita nak secara keseluruhan hidup dalam dunia teknologi baru yang kita sedang lihat berkembang pesat, bukan saja di negara ini, seluruh rantau, tapi juga di peringkat global yang kita hangat bincangkan setiap hari. We have to understand that in order for us to deal with this problem, we need to speak about this problem in simplistic terms. Now, there is a simple story which underscores the importance of the subject matter. There was an event, the CEO appeared at that event, went on stage, switched on his laptop, or his iPad, and his speech was prepared for him. When he got onto stage, he switched on the iPad, but it would not switch on. It would not switch on, resulting in which he was not able to have access to his speech. Bukan macam dulu, where we have speeches written on paper, and you know for a fact that when you get on stage, your speech is going to be right there before you. Tapi dunia baru. So CEO itu, he goes on stage, tries to switch on the iPad, it doesn't switch on. Was there a cybersecurity attack? No, there wasn't. He forgot to charge his iPad. And I think many of you here have faced instances that are quite similar. Maybe not fully empty, but you know, you walk into an event and you look at the battery and it says 5% left, and you're thinking whether you're going to get through that event with your screen, workable in front of you. Now, let me take it one step further. Imagine if his iPad wasn't charged, not because he forgot to charge it, but because you had a cyber attack that resulted in the energy systems in the country being affected. This is what we mean when we speak about NCIIs, National Critical Information Infrastructure. So if we are to live in a world in which all of us are going to depend almost entirely on digital gadgets of today and tomorrow, we must make sure that we have an ecosystem that provides us with the necessary tools for it to work. If there was a cyber attack on national critical information infrastructure, that would mean that we will not be able to have access to the information or the tools that we need in order to succeed on a daily basis. So it is from this perspective that one can understand that unlike a human being who retires for the night and rises the next day fully charged to do what he is supposed to do, gadgets don't operate that way. We need to think about how we can make sure that we do not find ourselves in a scenario or a situation where we are not able to access these tools which determine how it is we operate on a daily basis. This is something to think about. It's a simple way of explaining why we have to look at trust from a very different perspective. Now let's take it one step further. In today's world, we all speak about connectivity. That has developed. In the last 5 years, we have all spoken about 4G, we've all spoken about 5G, IoT. We've had various events showcasing how this new technology empowers us, transforms our businesses, optimizes the output of our industries, even develops how government operates digital services to its people, so on and so forth. In fact, as you move to the next room, you will see showcases which demonstrate exactly that. We also now speak about AI, and this is what we call next generation technology. The discussion of today revolves around AI, Gen AI, and perhaps later agentic AI, and it will continue to develop as we go along. We need to understand what this technology is. And it's only by understanding this technology that we will be able to identify every single layer that goes into it in order for it to work. And when we understand that, we will have to face this hard-pressing question of how we ensure that we are able to provide for security in every single layer that impacts on that technology, so that we can make sure that when we use that technology, it is ready and available, and it is technology that is going to be sustainable, because we can anticipate that we are going to be using this technology perhaps forever, moving ahead herefrom. Example, we speak about robotics today. When we speak about robotics, some people visualize a robotic arm that can make a coffee for you. I'm sure you will find one of these machines, if not in this exhibition, in many exhibitions of this nature. What does it do? It makes sure that the coffee is made in the same precise way that it was made in the serving just before that, the right temperature. It tastes exactly the same, and that's how there is quality control. So it's good. But let's take it one step further. Let's assume for a moment we move into a world where you have robots managing farms. You have robots in factories. You have robots in hospitals. And you actually even have robots at home, taking care of your children or even the elderly. That is a robot in a physical sense. A robot that appears to you like a humanoid. But it can also mean autonomous vehicles that move around us without drivers, that operate on networks. really decide how it is we transact on a daily basis. Assuming for a moment you lost control, or the robot did something that it wasn't supposed to do. This could happen because of a cyber attack. There could be an impact on the network, for example, or this could be simply as a result of a mechanical failure. Now, if we speak about cybersecurity, that deals with one aspect of it. But mechanical failures are also something that you need to think about. Because when you speak about trust, it's not just about a cyber attack that results in a system failure. It also revolves around issues of how we created an ecosystem so that when we put amongst us new gadgets, robots, they will work in a way that is safe for us. It is okay if the robot breaks down. But what happens if the robot is to do something that puts us at risk? Assuming for a moment we are in this room. Amongst us, maybe about 500 people here, we have 50 robots, which we cannot control. You're going to put yourselves at risk of irreparable damage. And this is something we need to think about. Before something like that happens, we need to think about a strategy by which we build an ecosystem that enables us to assure ourselves that the system is secure, so that when we introduce new machinery into our lives, on the premise that it benefits, empowers, and helps us, we've also thought about how we can ensure that it is safe. We cannot move into a realm where there is a problem, there are serious consequences, and only then the thinking begins about what it is we need to do, how it is we need to maintain that control in the event things get out of hand. This is why the conversation around cybersecurity and trust becomes so important. We move ahead in a new world where the conversations on a daily basis press us to push on in building and developing new technology. The race is on. Whilst we speak about technology here, our friends around the region, globally, do the same. We read about new inventions. We are excited by it. We too want to keep up with that. We too want to introduce new technology in our countries. And this is the reason why we have even the Ministry of Digital looking at building infrastructure that allows us to do that. So we speak about connectivity, as I said earlier. We speak about AI. We speak about data. We speak about building that ecosystem. But at the same time, we need to understand security must be the priority. Trust must take center stage. And ultimately, it is most important for us to explain this to people in simple terms so that they understand. If in the past we used to tell people to ensure that their homes were safe, because if they were to have overlooked that aspect, then you could anticipate that there could be a break into that house. Today there has to be an equal conversation about awareness, about how it is the devices that you use put you at risk, be it scams online, be it system failures, or otherwise. Now, I explained earlier to you the problem with robots. That looked at robotics in physical form. You can actually see it. If it breaks down, you're able to understand what is happening because it is around you. The visuals allow you that form of security, that form of ability to understand what is going on. But the world has moved beyond that. Today we deal with robots in the virtual world. When we speak about AI, we speak about language models, which means that we are in a world in which we depend on systems that speak to us on a daily basis, that operate autonomously, on our behalf, that even transact for us. They are programmed in a certain way, the transactions carry on. This happens around us, even now as we speak. Many of you are on your handphones, your smartphones, your smart devices. It's multitasking, you're doing different things at the same time. You're reliant on technology that exists in a different realm. Assuming for a moment you had a language model that you needed to deal with, you are going to be making decisions based on what that model tells you. Assuming you have to make a big decision involving a business transaction, you will be reliant on the data that you read or that you have access to on that gadget. A decision that is made on data that is inaccurate can have huge consequences for your business. How do we make sure that there is security? How do we make sure that you know that the data that you have, that you're relying on, not just for business transaction, assuming for a moment there's an incident which renders you unconscious and you're taken to hospital. And because you're unconscious, the doctors who need to treat you have to rely on medical records, only to find later that the medical records are not accurate, as a result of which you have been wrongly diagnosed and the treatment that they have given you is not the treatment that you require. Now, these are just simple examples. I explained to you how it is. We see things in the physical world. There's a need for us to deal with it. There's also this different realm that we need to think about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I started off by explaining to you this example of that lady who came to our event from Melbourne, Australia. That involves the private sector. Many of you here are business people. We live in this world. We know what technology can do. We are prepared to adopt technology. We are prepared to adapt. We hope that, it will benefit us. We assume that it is safe. At the same time, we also have national security aspects that we need to think about. That is why the explanation from a robot that you can see to what happens in this new realm, this virtual world, which is subject to cyber attacks all the time. Now, if we think that it is safe because we have been told it is safe, let us go back to what happened not very long ago. That one afternoon when all of us went to our offices, switched on our computers, and found blue screens. The CrowdStrike incident. At that point in time, we did not know if it was a cyber attack. We did not know if it was a mechanical failure. We were in a position where we had no knowledge of what was happening right before us. That can happen right now again. Are we ready to deal with instances like that? Assuming for a moment that involves something that was even more important or pressing, for example, something that dealt with national security, military. We have to start thinking about this and speaking about it frankly. There's a need for us to understand that we are responsible for building an ecosystem that keeps us safe. It begins with us. In order for us to have that conversation, we need to understand the subject matter. And we need to be frank about how we need to scale this conversation. We need to bring different groups of people together. There must be government in the room, because government is in a position to create regulatory frameworks, governance. We are able to put in Parliament bills that become legislative instruments. Now, when the Ministry of Digital was set up, the first thing that we did was to table the Cybersecurity Act. This was done within 3 months. Why? Because we recognize that behind the conversation that we're having now is the need for us to take not just steps, but real steps to make sure that we identify national critical information infrastructure, we identify certain base standards that we require them to conform with so as to ensure that they are cyber safe, and then to create regulations continuously so as to strengthen them even more as we go along. Then we looked at personal data. We already had an act in place. We needed to think about how we could strengthen that, and that was done subsequently with amendments to the act. Subsequently, there was a data sharing act bill that now is the Data Sharing Act, which also deals with how data is stored, shared, and security levels in that process. So government plays an important role in listening to the concerns of the industry and then trying to find ways by which we can take steps to ensure that we build an ecosystem that delivers on safety and trust. But we can't do this alone. There is a need for us to speak, as I said earlier, to the industry. We need to have the experts in the room who can tell us what we can expect next, what kind of threats we think we are going to see next, so that we can start building security systems now to deal with them. And in all of this, the academia, for example, I've met many professors who have told me that we need to do more so that we can build resources, strength. That resilience will only come about with conversations where we share our experiences, our thoughts, and our concerns openly and frankly. And if we think that conversation has to be a conversation just here, domestically, I think we need to think again. If we have an ecosystem that is strong, secure, resilient, threats will come from outside of our nation. This is why conversations around us, regionally, become very important. We must make sure that we are able to speak to our friends in the region, emphasize and underscore the importance of this subject to them. And I can tell you this, in conversations that I have with them at ASEAN events, they too are pressing ahead in building security, cybersecurity, and trust in their own countries. If all of us can develop ecosystems in each other's countries that are strong, and we share each other's strengths, then I think we build a region that becomes resilient, which is what we need to do moving ahead. So this is one of the reasons why, for an event like this, and the Ministry of Digital has pressed ahead in the last 3 months, various events using ASEAN and our chairmanship as a platform. We've invited friends and colleagues of us from around the region to come and talk to us about their concerns, ideas that they have, where they think we should be moving, in which direction all of us should be heading. And conversations like this must carry on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are responsible for building the ecosystem that will bring us into this new digital future that we keep speaking about every day. I can give you my full assurance that the Prime Minister has focused on cybersecurity and trust at the forefront of his mind. This is something that we'll probably even look and see during the next budget session, which is in the next 2 weeks. But what is important is for us to make sure that we continue to have discussions of this nature. We are here today to speak about what we think needs to be done next. And I must thank all of you for making time, for taking the effort to coming here, being a part of this very important event, understanding that if we are going to speak about digital transformation, enhancing digital economies in our countries, in the region, and globally, we understand that there are risks. We, as governments, as people, must now take that opportunity to address these risks. And it can only begin with conversations like this. So, to all of you who are here present today, all of you all who have actually made special time and effort to make this event a success, I thank you for taking the effort, taking the time. I know that this is an important event. It's been held a couple of years now. I must thank the organizers. Please carry on this great work. Let us make sure that this conversation carries on. Rest assured that insofar as the MADANI government is concerned, we are aware that this is an area that must be given the utmost priority. And this is the reason why we will continue to support this event in the coming years. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with that, it gives me great pleasure to declare the CyberDSA 2025 officially open. Thank you very much and have a great conference ahead.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Gobind Singh Deo.